People often ask me, why did you go to law school, or public relations is such a strange undergrad for law school, and I have to tell them, I don't think it is at all. As an attorney, what you are is a communicator, whether you're a litigator in the courtroom or whether you're in a negotiation with a client or an adversary, or you're doing some mediation. It's all about communicating. It's all about how concise you can be, how succinct, how um, convincing you can be or credible you are, and then also even down to the editing when you talk about contracts. The placement of a comma can mean a huge amount of struggle for an organization. So writing, editing, your grammar, attention to detail is very important. So communication is a huge part of being an attorney. Being an attorney in an organization, but having a background as a communicator is incredibly valuable to an organization, because when I come into a situation, whether it's a communications issue or a legal issue, I'm looking at it from both aspects. So I may come into it and say, from a legal aspect, here's what we can and can't do to either be in compliance or to abide by the law or the regulation. And depending on what the business decides to do, then I can also say, but from a communication standpoint, while that may be compliant, are we sure we want to do that, or how might it be perceived? What kind of considerations do we need to take into account from all of our different stakeholders? So I'm looking at it from all those different views. So I think having an attorney who's been on the other side is really helpful for an organization. I enjoy being a lifelong learner. Um, Nobody who decides to go to law school in their 40s, who has 3 kids and works a full-time job, isn't emphatic and excited about education. I really love learning. I'd be a professional student if I could earn a living at doing that. But I think it's important to be involved in organizations like PRSA and professional development groups, because while you may not be pursuing a degree, you're continuing that learning process, either informally through the relationships that you build and the people that you're networking with and learning from, or formally coming to a conference like the PRSA International Conference, which was great that I was able to do that this year through the generosity of the organization, and learn from formal presentations and speakers and motivational speakers. It's just been a great benefit to me as a communications person, being a part of PRSA for the past 15 plus years. I'm so glad that I've been able to do that, because it is a way to continue to stretch your mind, learn about new processes and new tactics, even though you might not be in a graduate program. I think one of the biggest struggles working in a corporation in-house is helping people understand the importance of telling people not only what we're doing and how it works, but why we're doing it. If people understand why, they won't opt out. And I think about a new policy we implemented in our organization just a couple of months ago. And it was a change in the way people worked, a change in people's work habits, a change in culture. And there was a little bit of resistance. But when I would go to groups and talk to them about why we were implementing the policy, they said, oh, I get it. That makes sense now. So if you start with the why, this is why we're doing it, and make that communication simple and something memorable and something that's impactful and personal to them, that if we don't do this, we may not continue our market share, we may not be profitable, therefore you may not have your job. If you make it personal to them and they understand why, they're more apt to heed the message and change the behavior and accept that communication or that new directive or that request from the organization. So it is really important to work with all the functions and help them understand the communication aspect of what they're doing. The program may be perfect, it may be flawless, it may be novel, but if you don't tell people why we're doing it and how to do it, it doesn't matter. I get the opportunity through PRSA to meet a lot of young people who are starting their careers in the communication industry. I also mentor quite a few students, usually one at a time, but I've had an opportunity to mentor quite a few and hire interns for our organization in the communications group. I'm often asked, what is it you would tell them? What's the piece of advice that you would give them? And it's a couple of things. First and foremost, I would say do as many internships as you can. I think I did 4 internships by the time I graduated from college. And even then, it was hard to get my foot in the door into an actual PR job right after graduation, even with the 4 internships. So do as many internships as you can. Not only does it give you that experience to get your foot in the door, but it also gives you an idea of what kind of public relations or communications you'd like to do, because there are so many different tracks you could take, from event planning to media relations, issues management, speech writing. There's so many. It's such a diverse major or occupation. I would also say start at an agency. I always tell people a year at an agency is kind of like dog years. 1 year at an agency is like 5 or 7 years in corporate communications, because you are doing so much. You have an opportunity to work on a diverse clientele and a diverse set of tactics, and it's 24/7. You're often working late nights and weekends, and so it literally is, doing maybe 1.5 or 2 jobs. So I always tell people start at an agency, because most corporate communication jobs require 3 to 5 years in an agency, or they like to see that before you come in-house. So start at an agency, and then read and write. Read as much as you can. And I'm not talking just about newspapers, but novels and biographies and fiction, anything you can get your hands on, because the more you read, the better a writer you will become, which is my last piece of advice, which is write.